Good morning. Let's begin this new series on music, transforming and uplifting consciousness with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, dearest friend, beloved God, great masters of Kriya Yoga, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, and our friend Swami Kriyananda, we bow humbly before you all. Bless us today. Help us to understand how music transforms our consciousness and can show us the pathway, the subtle art form of right living, of right attitude, how to respond to every circumstance in life with a joyful heart, with love, and with gratitude. Om, peace. Amen. So, as it's probably no surprise based on the series and on the title, we're going to be talking about music, and not just today, but for a long, long time. And the idea that this is sort of based upon is that Swami Kriyananda often talked about the power of music to transform and actually create consciousness, not just change it, but to actually generate new consciousness itself. And we'll explore this, and we'll explore how that's possible, and not only how it's possible esoterically, but how it's possible for us individually in our own lives, and how to apply it and learn to live rightly because of it. In a really interesting discourse, Swami talked about using this music, specifically the music that came through him into the world and through Yogananda, to create a new consciousness within all of us. And he called it like music as the art of living, which I thought was so wonderful, such a beautiful way of expressing it. And what Swami went on to talk about was how often in the science of yoga and as yogis on the path, we all are taught techniques. You know, we can all be taught Hangsa, we can all be taught the sacred Om technique, and even Kriya Yoga. We can be taught the prescripts of yoga science. We can be taught the yamas and the niyamas. We can read the 10 Commandments. We can read the Holy Scriptures. But that's all the science of it. What we need is also the art of how to love God, the art of how to move through life in the right bhav, in the right feeling, in the right state of consciousness. And that's what music can teach us. I realized I actually may have prematurely picked up this guitar because I'm explaining a little bit more before I sing the first song here. But I'm sure we've all experienced how music can immediately impress upon our hearts a certain feeling or a certain experience. And I was actually just listening to a music theorist and an entertainer on YouTube, and he said a wonderful quote that was so good I'll have to share it now for all of us. He said that words make us think thoughts, music makes us feel feelings, and songs make us feel thoughts. And I thought that's actually true, essentially. That, of course, language, the purpose of words and of language is to try to communicate abstract ideas to one another. And I just actually, last night, I heard someone say, basically, the fundamental ambiguity of language was the phrase he used. And I had to sit there and chew on that for a moment and realize, well, I suppose he's not wrong. That language is all of us sort of gesticulating generally at a particular concept that we're hoping to communicate clearly enough to one another. But music is something else, isn't it? That when you hear a beautiful melody, your heart responds to it instantly. As a cellist, I can tell you many experiences that I've had with that exact thing. that I'll be playing a certain musical phrase and suddenly my heart will just leap out of my chest in that moment. And if you were to ask me how would I describe that experience of that musical phrase, it would be hard to put to words, because the only thing that I would want to do to express it would be to play it or to sing it, because I would say it feels like this. It feels like this when that passage plays through me. And this is why all of us enjoy music, because we feel reflected within music states of consciousness that we ourselves are familiar with. And this is why whatever state of mind we're in is very much indicative of the kind of music that we'll be prone to enjoy. It's actually interesting. I just happened to, the thought popped into my brain just about last week of a song I used to listen to in high school. And it is a song from the heavy metal genre, and I remember the singer was actually a pretty talented singer, and there's good musicians in those sorts of bands sometimes, and the thought popped into my head. I thought, I haven't thought about that song in like a decade. I wonder what it would sound like now. And meaning, now that my consciousness has changed, now that I'm no longer an angst-ridden 15-year-old boy in high school, I wonder what my perception of the song would be. And so I went and I listened to that piece of music again, and I was astounded at what I heard, because the music was so jarring, was so uncomfortable, was so inherently antagonistic to peace, and that it seemed to scream of a deep underbelly of malcontent and angst and a hurt heart. And the lyrics even tell the story of a young, unnamed man who feels rejected and misunderstood by all of life, and he's contemplating suicide. And the chorus the chorus after every verse is talking about how he's contemplating committing suicide. And I listened to this song again, and I thought, oh my God, I used to listen to this, and I used to enjoy it. I used to sing those lyrics along with it. Oh my God. And listening to it now, and especially with that idea that music creates consciousness, I thought, what a dark influence that was. And what a great blessing it is that I no longer listen to that music. And there was other thoughts as well, but I don't have to go in there. I think we've all experienced this. All of us who have been living on a spiritual path, and we get into a certain bhav, but then haven't you felt sometimes when you're feeling a little rebellious and you put on that album from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and all of a sudden you're remembering how you used to feel, and there's a familiarity there sometimes and an enjoyment in that. But when we listen to the music of the past, we get the consciousness of the past. And what we have now is a consciousness available to us of the future, of our higher selves, of our superconscious selves. And that's what this music that Swami Kriyananda brought is for, is to help us step into a new feeling, into a new experience of life, into a new experience of our own selves, and to learn to live life with a greater flow. And I don't just mean that abstractly, I mean it specifically. This music will teach you how to respond to life with an open heart, how to flow with life, because that's what this music is. It's the art of right living. That it will teach you how to respond, that we'll go into this over the course of this series together. We'll learn how the way Swami Kriyananda crafts the melody, or I shouldn't even say that he crafted the melody, the way that God crafted the melody and Swami put it down on a piece of paper, will teach our heart how to respond to certain situations. And we'll traverse a wide variety of songs that deal with every situation the human heart can know. That we will go through songs talking about the human heart overcoming all suffering and having to endure great human pain. There are songs that Swami wrote about people who have lost everything, who have watched their sons, their husbands, and all their friends die, and now they're contemplating death itself. That's one of his songs. And yet in that melody, Swami says we also hear how to overcome all despair, all depression itself, because we've faced into that and we've learned to see God through it. we'll go through songs that will help us attune to specific avatars, like Jesus, through the music he wrote in the oratorio. And we can learn how, through subtle musical inflections, to open our heart to a feeling of the presence of Christ's consciousness, not an intellectual understanding, but a living experience here and now. And I have to interrupt myself just to share a brief story, because this is true. This is no idle fancy to me. This is the bedrock of my own life that I'm sharing. That when I was a young boy, so actually now we get to kind of joke about the dichotomy of things. I was a walking dichotomy for a number of years, in that I was listening to, like I said, that kind of heavy metal song, that terrible undercurrent of consciousness, and then I would go sing in the choir and sing Swami Kriyananda's music and be totally uplifted and transformed by it. And believe me, it confused me even then. So I have no other explanation for it than boh, as the Italians say. But at any rate, in one of these experiences, I sang the song from the oratorio with the full choir, Living Water. And if you're not immediately familiar with that song, the lyric that was most moving to me was this swelling crescendo of sound. The whole choir goes from being very, very quiet, very, very subdued, where the song is talking about all the mistakes that we've made, all the errors that we've ever got ourselves into, and the concomitant despair that we would find ourselves in. And the whole choir becomes very soft and subdued. And then suddenly there is this vast crescendo, which is this swelling of sound and hope, and the melody springs upwards into the higher register, just cutting through the darkness of all previous error and sin and despair. And the line that breaks through in that moment is, "He can redeem you from any evil." And it resounds as a clarion call through that piece of music in that moment. And don't worry, we'll come to that song and we'll get to sing it together and we'll study it together and we'll experience that moment together. But the line continues, "He can redeem you from any evil. Friend, only think of him. Walk by his side." And in that moment, I didn't just think that thought, because someone could have told you that just as I have now, and it means nothing. But when you feel it, it means everything. Like I shared at the beginning, music can make us feel thoughts. And that's what Swami Kriyananda has done so elegantly, so beautifully with this music, is he is giving us a way to feel consciousness, a higher consciousness, a consciousness that we're all aspiring for. So it wouldn't be fair of me to just sit here and talk for 30 minutes. And I have talked longer than I thought I would as an introduction. But so let's sing together and let's experience this. This is the Song of the Nightingale, which is a very probably well-known song of Kriyananda's within the Ananda community. And it's a beautiful melody, as I think you'll see in just a moment. But one thing I'd like for us to tune into together today, let's begin with a heightened awareness. Let's not just take this as a song that we've heard 500 times, so what's 501? But let's take this as the first time. Let's take this as a unique moment in space and time, in infinity, that we are now uplifting our consciousness into this vibration that this song is offering to us. And one thing that I always enjoy thinking about in relationship to this song is Swami says that the nightingale is often used as an allegory for the Guru, because the nightingale is the song that sings a beautiful message through the darkness of night and that heralds the dawn, the coming light. And so as we sing this song, we're not just singing about a little bird, we're singing about the Guru and the Guru's message of hope to us, that the Guru is always reaching out his hand and telling us, this is how you can find happiness. This is how you can find the light within yourself. This is how you can find God. And so I encourage you, if you know this song, to sing with me. Let the vibration move through your body. Allow it to transform you and allow yourself to feel the bhav, which is to say the feeling of this piece of music. Because we could break it down intellectually. I could talk about the melody. I could talk about the music theory behind it. But all of that is just fluff and interest. But your heart, if you relax and feel, your heart will know exactly everything I could try and describe. So let's sit upright together. Let's open our hearts. And if you feel to, you can gaze gently upwards at the spiritual eye as we sing together Song of the Nightingale. Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach my heart to impart everywhere your delight. Sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach all men how to spin clouds of gloom into light. Without silence, what is song? Without night, where is dawn? Were it not for men's woes, who would smile at a rose? Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Let each tone silence groan, earth and heaven unite. Morning laughter, evening tears, snow and blossoms all fade. Joy must sing in the night to face change unafraid. Nightingale, nightingale, And just feel for a moment. Where is your heart now? What an incredible song of hope, isn't it? Each one of those verses we could meditate on for a lifetime until we truly absorbed it. And the melody and the lyrics dance so elegantly together. But wasn't that special? I've heard that song many times, and yet that was just so touching. There are so many elements of this song that I would love to be able to pick apart together slowly, piece by piece, and we'll see how far we get. But just the first impression that I get whenever I sing this song is it's such an incredible message of hope, isn't it? That the nightingale, even in the night, is singing of moon rays on the rain. I mean, it's so funny, you know, we hear people talk about always seeing the glass half full or seeing the positive side of life, but that's what this song is sort of talking about in the highest sense. Not in a sense of diluting ourselves, but in always learning to see God in everything, perhaps. And in, through that, learning to face change unafraid, as it says in that final verse. But what's really fun about a song like this is the melody itself is influencing our consciousness. Actually, just yesterday, in an attempt to try and tune in more deeply to us, I actually played it on my cello. So therefore I wasn't singing it, and I was just playing the melody. And even the melody itself is very simple, actually. It's not an overly complex concerto, but it conveys so much. And what immediately struck me about this song is in music there are different relative notes to a starting point. And what's interesting is you don't even have to intellectually understand it, but all of us immediately understand the emotional context and the feeling context of a piece of music very quickly, simply by what note it starts on and by where it goes from there. That when a piece of music starts in an overly grounded place and goes downwards, we all feel like a sense of depression and of lowering our energy or of a hope dashed and forgotten. But this piece of music is so interesting to me in that it starts on what would be called the tonic, but it starts in a higher octave. And already that in itself says so much about this piece of music. This piece of music is teaching you to see life from a higher octave, which is to say that it's actually the same note, but it just is higher. It's more beautiful. It's closer to God. And so this piece of music is teaching you, you don't have to, nothing in the world has to change. Nothing outside of yourself has to change, but you can see it in a more divine way. But you yourself can become more divine in how you relate to the world and in who you are in your heart. And what's beautiful is that note, that uplifted sense of self, is the note that the song keeps returning to. It always reminds us of our higher self, is what the impression I got from playing this piece of music without the words. That first note, Nightingale, Nightingale, it keeps reminding us, this is who you are, this is who you are, this is who you are. Come back to this point. And what's very sweet is that first little passage which I just sang, Nightingale, Nightingale, that is just, I mean, already, doesn't it just sound like a memory calling over to you from across time and space? Like some whisper from your higher superconscious self inviting you to awake again in that memory of who you really are? That's what it feels like to me. And that's what the nightingale is doing, is chirping to us in the night, awake, for the dawn soon shall rise. And then what's beautiful to me is musically throughout this piece, it's like I said, it's actually a very simple melody. But there are at times notes of building tension, but instead of building emotional angst, they're just to show us the wonder in life and the wonder within ourselves. For example, the phrase, sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain, is sort of, from a musical perspective, one could technically say it was an exploration of the theme of the melody. But what's going on is we're using notes, musical notes, that are no longer part of that original pattern, and it's showing us that even when things come that aren't expected, when there's new variety or things that are outside of our control, it can be wonderful, and it can be beautiful. And it's emphasized by the choice of his lyrics here. Sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain. It's so sweet, isn't it? What's interesting is if some slightly different notes had been used here or slightly different lyrics, that passage could have been sorrowful. It could have been sad. It could have been crying about how everything is not what you thought it was. But instead it's saying, sing that love's not in vain. Every grief. And then actually I'll just sing the next phrase. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Perfectly summarizes that first verse. And from a musical perspective, I think this is just downright genius from the superconscious mind. Because again, like I was talking about, it's interesting. You don't even have to know this intellectually, but all of us feel in music, there has to be an interplay between tension and relaxation, that the music implies a certain direction, but it withholds the end result for just a moment. That way, when we come to the final conclusion, there's a sense of homecoming, or a sense of relaxation, a sense of triumph sometimes, which we'll come into, I think, more directly in some of his other pieces of music. But this one is so sweet because here the melody plays with those notes of tension, even though it's not anxious. It's playing with the notes of tension until it resolves once again in that higher sense of self, has its ending in song. So as I sing this last phrase, just try to feel how this phrase of the melody is teaching us to enjoy and to expand our sense of awareness through life's experience until we appreciate our inherent divinity even more. It just goes like this. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Such a simple line, but it says so much for all of us. So now you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm no music theorist. I didn't study music. I don't know what a tonic is. I don't know what a third is. I don't know what chords are. It doesn't matter. You have a heart. I have a heart. That's why this music works. And that's why Swami Kriyananda was so emphatic about its use in our lives, is like I said, these melodies can teach you how to feel, how to open your heart to the divine consciousness, how to live rightly. And if you don't believe me, just try. Just try. Just try singing this song. Take it every day. You can easily find a recording of Swami Kriyananda singing it. Listen to it. And see if it doesn't dispel the despair that might daily crowd around your mind. See if next time you find a mood creeping in on you, sing a line from this. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Even if you're not able to feel completely hopeful or completely joyful or completely free, I almost guarantee if you sing a song like that, there's no way you can't feel hope. And that's what this song really says to me, is hope. It says everything can be more beautiful, will be more beautiful, if you just sing with God, so to speak. And I'm not saying that you're going to sing this song and be flung into samadhi and your whole life will be better, but I will say, I think if you sing this song, if you sing this melody, if you listen to it sensitively, it will teach you to be more hopeful and to listen to God's message to you that the dawn is coming, that hope is on its way, and that maybe eventually, if we change enough of our attitude, we'll begin to see that everything that comes into our life is a blessing. Without silence, what is song? Without night, where is dawn? Were it not for men's woes, who would smile at a rose? And so this song, through its melody, through its poetry, will begin to teach us to appreciate also everything that comes to us. And that will surely breed contentment, among other things. So, we could just pull this thread for as long as we wanted. This song could help us in many ways. And the only way we're going to really know is if we take it. If we really practice, if we sing. And remember, when you sing this song, try and let it enter into your heart. This is not an intellectual exercise. This is an exercise of attunement and of relaxation. Just like when you go and you listen to your favorite piece of music and you allow it to take you away. Do that with this music. Allow it to take you upwards into a higher sense of your own self, where surely all of our souls are craving to be. So let's conclude this first experience together by singing the song again. And after having talked about it just a little bit, let's see if we can't tune into its essential vibration just a little bit more deeply. Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Teach my heart to impart everywhere your delight. Sing of moon rays on the rain, sing that love's not in vain. Every grief, every wrong has its ending in song. Nightingale, nightingale, sing sing of joy through the night. Teach all men how to spin clouds of gloom into light. Without silence, what is song? Without night, where is dawn? Were it not for men's woes, who would smile at a rose? Nightingale, nightingale, sing of joy through the night. Let each tone silence groan, earth and heaven unite. Morning laughter, evening tears, snow and blossoms all fade. Joy must sing in the night to face change unafraid. Nightingale, nightingale, Let's close with a brief prayer together. Divine Mother, teach us to live in the way that this song shows us, with an ever increasingly open heart, with great love for Thee, and with the deepest sense of hope. Om, peace. Amen. Thank you, friends. See you next week.